exposed. The amazing moment she discovered her boyfriend's CEO was a hidden Mafia boss in crisis. Sarah sat at the small dining table in their shared apartment. An open textbook sprawled before her, yet all her attention snapped to the muffled conversation drifting in from the living room. Jake's deep voice blended with the anxious whispers of a man she had never met, and her heart raced, not from the weight of her nursing textbooks, but from an uneasy feeling creeping into her bones. Was this the man who was supposed to inspire hope and love in her life, or was her growing affection just a screen masking something sinister? Each shift she worked, every long night studying to keep her grades up, all remained overshadowed by this pressing sense of dread. Sarah had climbed her way through college, balancing late shifts at the diner with her responsibilities to her younger siblings and her struggling mother. Yet she had felt seen and valued with Jake, who filled her life with laughter and dreams. However, now, the charming facade of their budding romance felt more like a mask slipping away. The contradicting emotions of love and suspicion gnawed relentlessly at her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening she decided to confront him, but fear paralyzed her instincts. What if he pushed her away? What if his response unveiled secrets she wished she could unsee? Anxiety bubbled within her, rendering her stomach heavy as she slumped back in her chair. Every tick of the clock echoed her racing thoughts. Questions piled high. What if Jake was hiding something more dangerous than mere lies? Her drive to protect her family surged, a moral compass clashing with her rising affection for Jake. The stark contrast between laughter at the dinner table and the shadows of danger outside sung a bitter symphony. As Jake stepped onto the porch to take the call, she glanced at the door, half listening to the muffled voices. There was an urgency in their tones, a language she was unprepared to comprehend. The tap of her foot against the floor quickened, matching the uncertainty that pounded in her chest. At dinner, the distance between their smiles felt insurmountable. Sarah's heart tightened each time memory flashed of their enchanted evenings together. But this moment was weighed down by a secret peril, shocking her senses. Should she dive into the truth, risking their connection? Or should she bury her instincts for the sake of love and security? Suddenly, the door swung open and Jake stood there, tension radiating off him. His confident demeanor had shifted into one wrought with stress. Two grim-faced men followed behind, every subtle shift indicating they were aware of more than she could fathom. Heart-racing, Sarah's stomach dropped as whispered threats danced through the air, confirming her fears. In that flickering candlelight, realization stabbed through her. Trust became hazardous. Jake's world collided with something she couldn't ignore. With stakes higher than ever, Sarah knew she could no longer play ignorant. Torn between love and loyalty, she needed answers or everything they built would unravel. In this poignant moment of impending wrath, she contemplated if she could emerge from this unseen chaos unscathed, for the truth felt more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Sarah felt the weight of the moment hanging in the dim light, shadows creeping closer as uncertainty loomed larger. The din of the conversation enveloped her, the fervent whispers of men with untold intentions inching into her psyche. The threads of her life had been neatly woven, yet they now unraveled with each nascent truth threatening to come to light. She clenched her hands into fists, her pulse thrumming with an urgent need for action. The shadows darted in her mind, tugging at the memories of Jake's laughter, the comfort, the dreams. They set a stark contrast to the rising tide of dread coursing through her. A decision bubbled within her, one that could pivot her whole existence. Confront the burgeoning truth or retreat into the silence of blissful ignorance. But ignorance was now a mere illusion. Behind Jake's charming facade lay danger. As her heart raced, she inhaled deeply, challenging the fear rising within her. In her nursing studies, she had learned about pain thresholds and the human psyche's resilience under duress. Watching Jake, she felt a stranger, a man she believed she loved, now shadowed by doubt. The hypnotic pull of love fought fiercely against her swirling instincts to flee. Would pursuing the truth solidify her growth, or unravel everything she had fought to achieve? With newfound resolve, Sarah quietly rose from the table and made her way toward the living room, her breath steadying with each step. What greeted her there would alter everything. The tension shifted, magnetic and oppressive. She stepped into the doorway just as Jake turned toward her, his back taut with unspoken words. "Sarah, he began, remorse lacing his voice, but she cut him off, the fire of determination fueled by the urgency of her need for clarity. "I know something isn't right, Jake. I heard you talking," she said, her voice firm yet wavering. The men flanking him met her gaze, an unyielding wall of disapproval cascading from their expressions. "What is this? Who are they?" The room stilled, the air thickening with suspense. Jake's facade fractured in an instant, the bravado he'd always wielded crumbling. She saw the hesitation in his eyes, the flicker of something darker. Fear. "Sarah, I didn't want you to find out this way," he murmured, a whisper heavy with sorrow. "Then tell me the truth." Her words carried the weight of her years of struggle, of the inadequacies she had overcome, and the hard-earned dreams she clung to with all her might. The silence dragged on, punctuated by the tension lining Jake's shoulders. Then, as if finally deemed worthy to be shared, he took a step closer, the remnants of his confidence faltering. "They're associates. It's complicated," he began, hesitant, exposing layers she hadn't anticipated. "Complicated?" she echoed, the word tasting bitter in her mouth. Her heart leaped. The time for half-truths and euphemisms had passed. "Is that all you can give me? This could be your chance to get away from whatever mess you've created. Help me understand." Jake flinched but stood tall, the battle within him churning like stormy seas. Those men behind him remained silent, their watchful stares amplifying the stakes. It became clear to Sarah that she stood at a precipice, each heartbeat louder, urging her toward the unknown. She could feel the fabric of her life shifting, her identity crystallizing around her needs and values. Courage surged through her limbs as she realized that regardless of the answers she uncovered tonight, she'd need to redefine what was truly important to her. "Are you in danger?" she pressed, desperation creeping into her voice. "We need to be safe." Jake's veneer cracked wide open. "Yes," he confessed, the single word salt on the wound of her soaring anxiety. "But it's more complicated than that. I was trying to protect you, to shield you from my world. But the truth, Sarah, it's finally time for you to choose." Sarah's breath hitched, the weight of his words crashing down around her. The battle between her love for him and her instincts to protect herself surged to the forefront. What lay ahead could change everything. A reckoning ignited in her core as she clung to the belief that her choices defined her fate. "Choose?" she questioned softly, her jaw tightening in agonizing clarity. The depth of the choice stretched infinitely before her, the horizon of danger looming ominously while her heart hammered against the prospect of what lay next. The resolve in Jake's eyes faded beneath the oncoming storm of uncertainty. And as their gazes locked, she understood that this tumultuous moment was merely the beginning. Sarah swallowed, preparing for the confrontation she wasn't sure she was ready for. But in the depths of her heart, she craved truth above all, and she would fight for it, even if it meant confronting her greatest fears. The battle for answers loomed ahead, but Sarah was ready to step onto the battlefield of deception, packing courage among her instincts, and forging her own path into the storm. Would the clarity she sought provide a foundation, or would it expose a darker truth? With every breath the future became clearer, yet more dangerous as she pondered what lay ahead. The truth was out there, waiting for her to seize it, and Sarah felt the urge to uncover what lay beneath the surface. Unbeknownst to her, the choices made tonight would resonate louder than any she had made before. Sarah felt the cold edges of dread creeping into her thoughts as silence enveloped the room. The confrontation hung heavy, weighing down her heart, and for a brief moment, confusion mingled with the adrenaline pulsing through her veins. Everything she thought she knew about Jake, about their life together, threatened to shatter irreparably. In that pivotal moment, she drew in a breath, forcing her mind to sharpen and boom back against the growing chaos within. How had she found herself here, feet planted firmly in a treacherous reality she never anticipated? The shadows of uncertainty had morphed into a tangible fear. Yet instead of cowering, she felt determination igniting, a flame flickering in the depths of her core. "Jake," she began, channeling every ounce of clarity she'd ever sought in her studies, realizing then that being a nurse had given her tools to navigate the complexities of human emotion, tools that could be wielded beyond the hospital. "There's so much at stake, and I need you to be honest with me. No more evasions." Jake ran a hand through his hair, the nervous gesture betraying layers of a man who until then had always held firm. "You need to understand my world, Sarah. It's dangerous, far more than you realize. I've kept you away from it to protect you." The shadows behind him seemed to pulse with the energy of judgment, the men still watching silently, like hawks awaiting a moment of weakness. Sarah could sense the atmosphere closing in, reminiscent of nights spent in the NICU, where fear danced hand in hand with hope. Control was her armor, and she clung to it fiercely. "You think shielding me is protective when all it's done is isolate me from the truth?" Her voice steadied, ringing with clarity that belied the storm within her. She was no longer just the obedient girlfriend. She was ready to embrace the woman she could become. "Tell me who they are. What do they want from you, from us? What do—" Jake hesitated, swallowed hard, emotions swirling, confusion, fear, perhaps even love. The complexity of their relationship was laid bare, the tangled lines between personal and professional now intertwined in an intricate knot. "They're involved in matters that go beyond business, Sarah. I never chose this life, it chose me." A flash of frustration coursed through her, the walls closing in around them starting to crack. Choices, she thought fiercely. Ones she'd made. "This is where I have to make a choice too. Do I dive deeper into this abyss with you? Or do I walk away?" The gravity of her question hung in the air, and for the first time she sensed Jake teetering on the edge of vulnerability. "I want you to trust me." "Trust?" she replied, disbelief twisting her features. "Trust is forged in truth, Jake. I need to know everything because your lies are building a dark cage that could engulf us both, and I refuse to be trapped." His eyes bore into hers, recognition dawning that she was no longer just an accomplice in his charade, but a woman ready to reclaim her narrative. Jake took a step back, as if the weight of her resolve physically pushed him away. Behind those darkened eyes, a crossroads formed. Would he rise to meet her newfound strength, or would he falter into the familiar grasp of the deceitful web he had spun? "Let me show you," he finally whispered, a tremor of desperation slicing through his brave disguise. The prospect of exploring these uncharted waters alongside Jake terrified her, but the potential for growth, both for himself and for their relationship, beckoned like a lighthouse in a tempest. Her heart raced. This was the moment where discovery hinged on a single choice. Her voice steadied, eyes narrowing with a determined glint. "Then let's face it together. But know this, Jake, I won't ever turn back." The truth shimmered in the air between them, an electrifying undercurrent that might either bind them in newfound intimacy or sever the ties that bound their fates together irrevocably. In that moment, it hit Sarah that her transformation was underway, a vital chapter unfolding in a narrative dictated by her own decisions. But as the shadows watched, lurking with intent, she couldn't shake the sense that stepping forward would demand far more than she was currently prepared to give. Outside, the world continued oblivious to the revelation brewing within the room. An unmarked path lay before her, riddled with choices poised to define her journey. Her heart thudded loudly against the chest that carried both doubt and fierce determination. What secrets would those men reveal when the curtain parted? Sarah's instincts flared as the night deepened and the stakes escalated, a chilling anticipation igniting her resolve. She was determined not just to face destruction, but to emerge from it with a deeper understanding of herself. With the storm closing in, she prepared for a confrontation that could unravel everything she's ever known. Every memory with Jake tainted by the sinister promise of clarity. How much would she be willing to sacrifice to seize the truth? As the door creaked open to invite the unknown, Sarah braced herself. The next chapter of her life awaited the unveiling, with its whispers of betrayal and veils of danger entwined like a gripping thread woven into her very soul. As the door swung open, Sarah was engulfed by the ambient noise of the world outside. Cars whooshing by, muted laughter, and the faint pulsing of music from a nearby bar. It drew her out of the intense atmosphere she shared with Jake. The men standing behind him, shrouded in obscurity and silence, faded into the background. She pivoted, her instincts sharp, ready to navigate the precarious path ahead. "Let's go," Jake urged, his voice barely more than a whisper, laden with urgency and something akin to fear. Sarah's heart raced, not from the prospect of danger, but from the swelling tide of determination to unravel what had been so carefully concealed. They needed to break free from the suffocating stillness in the room. Every second felt like an eternity, and the silence eclipsed her thoughts. Stepping out into the brisk night air, Sarah felt the adrenaline surge again. The streets wrapped around them, a web of city life teeming with oblivion to their strife. Jake led the way, but for the first time, Sarah felt the discomfort of being in the passenger seat of her own life. It signaled a shift. She would no longer passively follow his lead. As they walked, the shadows of his undisclosed world tugged at the edges of her consciousness, reminding her of the intricate dance of medicine she had mastered. Every day in her nursing career had taught her the critical importance of understanding signs, symptoms, the whispers of human emotion. It was a skill she had to leverage now, not just for patient care, but for preserving her identity in this labyrinth of deception. "Jake, explain to me what we're doing," she demanded, her voice steady while inside she grappled with fluttering doubts. Each step felt pivotal, every revelation a potential turning point. He turned to face her, the streetlights casting a soft glow that barely reached the shadows lingering in his eyes. "You'll know everything soon enough, I promise. Just trust me." "Trust doesn't come wrapped in secrecy," she countered, finding strength in her resolve. "Tell me how deep this goes." Jake opened his mouth to respond but faltered, searching for words that wouldn't fracture the fragile balance of their relationship. His vulnerability made her reconsider her approach. Maybe he was as much a victim in this sad tale as she might become. Pushing him wouldn't yield the answers she sought. Instead, she needed to invite him into the shared space. "Jake, we can tackle this together, but I need to hear it from you. You haven't been honest about everything, have you?" Finally, he hesitated and nodded slowly, the dire weight of his truth pressing heavily upon him. "All right, but you need to understand the risks. This is about more than just money or business. There are lives at stake." The air thickened with the unspoken ramifications of his words, and Sarah steeled herself. The image of those lives, intertwined with Jake's choices, cast a sudden light on her own responsibilities. She had always strived to save lives, not complicate them. As they approached a dimly lit corner, Jake halted and faced her, urgency pooling in his eyes. "You need to promise you'll listen without judgment." Sarah nodded, bracing for the storm that would undoubtedly follow. In that moment, she realized that her growth hinged on the duality of their journey. It wasn't just about unearthing truths. It was about standing tall in the face of adversity, even if fear threatened to topple her. As Jake began to speak, recounting tales fraught with peril and entanglement, she readied herself to confront the possibility that what lay ahead could challenge her values and everything she deemed sacred in her profession. But beneath that resolve lay a foreboding question. Would revealing these truths forge a stronger bond, or would it fracture the already tenuous thread holding their relationship together? As the night deepened, Sarah felt the weight of the world settle on her shoulders. How far was she willing to go to understand? To protect not only Jake but the self she was beginning to rediscover. With the threshold of discovery looming, she braced for the tumultuous revelations to come. Little did she know, the essence of her journey hinged on a singular moment that could alter not only her life, but the lives of many around her. And that moment was on the horizon, lurking like a storm ready to break. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that danced along the pavement as they stood in silence. Sarah clenched her fists, the urgency coursing through her veins. Whatever Jake was about to divulge would inevitably shift the trajectory of her life. The stakes had never been higher, and in that moment a flicker of doubt flared. Was she truly prepared to face the implications of this revelation? Jake seemed to sense her uncertainty. He took a deep breath and leaned closer, the tension palpable between them. It all started with a business deal, a merger that spiraled into something dangerous. He began, his voice trembling slightly. A group I thought was legitimate turned out to have strings attached. Strings connected to people who don't take kindly to betrayal. Betrayal? She echoed, her brow furrowing. You were working alongside criminals this whole time? The words tumbled out, heavy with disbelief. Yes and no. He hesitated, searching for clarity in the chaos. I had no idea what I was getting into at first. It was just a company, but they had connections. Powerful, terrifying connections. When I realized the extent, it was too late. They threatened me to stay quiet, but it wasn't just my life at risk anymore. Her heart thudded in her chest. What do you mean? What do they want from you? They want control of our operations. They're using their influence to manipulate everything. The lives I thought I was helping are now at the mercy of those who don't care about anyone but themselves. His voice cracked, a subtle vulnerability surfacing. As he spoke, Sarah felt the weight of his words settle in the pit of her stomach. The moral dilemmas she had navigated throughout her nursing career suddenly felt distant. No longer was it simply about saving lives. It was about navigating a dangerous underworld that had seeped into her life. Jake, this is more than just business now. You're entangled in something your ethics never prepared you for. Her voice softened. You have to find a way out. Before it's too late. He shook his head, frustration dawning in his expression. And what if leaving means exposing those involved? If I speak out, those lives I wanted to protect could end up in danger. I thought I could handle it, but then I realized I need help. The truth resonated deeply with her. She had faced distressing situations in the hospital, yet this was a different beast entirely. Complex, murky, shadowed in secrecy. She understood that her expertise in understanding human behavior could assist in confronting this menace. But how could she balance her values while embroiling herself further in the unknown? Jake, she began, considering her next words carefully, I won't abandon you, but you need to especially understand that once we step into this, there's no turning back. Our lives will intertwine with theirs. We will be marked. He searched her eyes, seeking clarity. You're willing to take that risk? Yes, but it's imperative that from this point forward we act strategically. We have to outmaneuver them, gather information quietly, find leverage. There's no room for recklessness. A flicker of hope ignited in Jake's gaze, but it was mixed with anxiety. She could see the pieces of his crumbling world reflected there, and it galvanized her resolve. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was about protecting innocent lives from becoming collateral damage. As they began to stride forward, Sarah felt a transformation within herself, a surge of purpose. Not only was she redefining her relationship with Jake, but she was also redefining her capacity for courage and leadership. Here was her chance to dig deeper into the complexities of human nature, to explore not just Jake's world, but her own potential within it. A plan started to germinate in her mind, a calculated strategy to uncover the truth without being consumed by it. Yet a lingering fear gnawed at her. How would they chicken out when they faced the real threats that awaited? Overwhelmed but empowered, she knew there was no returning to her former life. The choices ahead would not just shape her future, they would challenge the very core of her being. In the shadows of her uncertainty, one question burned brighter than the rest. Could she rise to the occasion, or would she falter in the face of the darkness that lay ahead? As she glanced at Jake, determination renewed in her focus. A sense of urgency pressed on her. She had to unmask the shadows before they engulfed her completely. The night was pregnant with unanswered questions, and Sarah felt herself on the verge of a pivotal discovery. What awaited her could either cement her resolve or unravel everything she held dear. Just then a figure emerged from the dark alley ahead, a warning bell clamoring in her mind. The time had come to face whatever challenge loomed in the shadows, and the stakes were about to get much higher. As the silhouette stepped into the dim glow of the streetlight, Sarah's heart raced. The figure moved with an unsettling confidence, and the air around them thickened with an expectation that sent a chill down her spine. Instinctively, she stepped closer to Jake, grounding herself against the uncertainty that flooded her mind. "Stay calm," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Jake nodded, but his pallor betrayed his fear. The figure, now fully illuminated, revealed a sharp-featured man with dark hair slicked back and a tailored suit that spoke of wealth and authority. He scanned the street, his eyes locking onto Sarah and Jake, and a smirk slowly crept onto his face. "Well, well. What a lovely surprise. I didn't think you'd have company tonight, Jake." "Liam," Jake murmured, the tension in his voice palpable. The man stepped closer, inspecting Jake with a semblance of amusement. "Still entangled in that little business mess? I'd recommend you think twice about your next move." The threat hung in the air, thickening the atmosphere as Sarah regarded Liam, trying to decipher his intentions. The realization struck Sarah harder than any revelation she'd encountered before. This wasn't just about safeguarding Jake's reputation. It involved an intricate web of criminality she had stumbled unknowingly into. She felt her pulse quicken, not just from fear, but from the need to act. She had a choice. She could stand paralyzed or step up and confront the reality before her. She had never been one to shy away from conflict, and now that spirit was igniting within her. "Why are you here, Liam?" Sarah's voice was steadier than she felt. There was something empowering about taking control of the conversation, even if she still felt the trembling uncertainty of the precarious path ahead. Liam chuckled softly, that dangerous glint still present in his eyes. "You're clever, but don't get too comfortable, sweetheart. You have no idea what you're dealing with." His gaze flickered to Jake, and she felt the moment stretch, an unbearable silence before the onslaught. "Let me remind you, Jake," Liam continued, his tone shifting to a colder register. "Your little escapades can cause more problems than you realize. There are consequences up the chain, and you're tugging at some very dangerous strings." The weight of Liam's words settled heavily on Sarah. Consequences. What had started off as mere business had escalated into a web of threats and dangers, and she was caught in the crossfire. How could she guide Jake through this darkness without becoming ensnared herself? Jake stiffened beside her, resolve hardening. "I'm not afraid of you, Liam, or your threats. We're done playing your games." Liam's laughter echoed ominously, an unsettling harmony to the tension in the air. "Bold words, Jake. But remember, your bravado doesn't mean you're invincible. I'll be watching." With that, he turned, melting back into the shadows from whence he came, leaving Sarah and Jake standing there, heartbeats racing, minds churning. "That was a warning," she said slowly, reality setting in with full force. "We can't just sit back and hope this fades away. We need to act, and quickly." Jake nodded, his expression firming with a new resolve. "You're right. We need information, but we have to be smart about it. No reckless moves." As they moved down the street, Sarah felt a newfound clarity. They were no longer just trying to escape the consequences. They were now strategizing how to turn the tide. She wasn't simply a nurse anymore, relegated to healing the physical. She was becoming a pivotal player in a larger game. This journey would test her resilience, challenge her ethics, and grow her capacity for strategic thinking in ways she had never imagined. But as the shadows crept closer, doubt flickered beneath her determination. Could she really navigate this underworld without losing herself in the process? And then her thoughts turned to another undiscovered mystery. If Liam was merely the tip of the iceberg, who else lurked in the depths of this dangerous world? The urgency pressed heavily upon her. The next move could define everything. As they reached a familiar intersection, Sarah's pulse quickened again. She was about to face a world where each step held weight, where every decision could unravel or reinforce their plan. What awaited her as they ventured deeper into this murky abyss? The specter of hidden allies and adversaries lingered unformed, waiting for that crucial moment to reveal themselves. The night air was thick, filled with unspoken tension as Sarah and Jake hurried their pace, trying to escape the palpable dread left in Liam's wake. Each step felt like a countdown, the rhythm of their footsteps mimicking the quickening cadence of Sarah's heartbeat. She was no longer just an observer in Jake's precarious life. She was being drawn deeper into a conflict that threatened to consume them both. Where do we even start? Jake's voice broke the silence, laced with both determination and uncertainty. Sarah paused, directing her gaze toward him. The resolve she had felt moments before squared in her chest. We need to find out what Liam is really involved in. If we can understand his connections, we can figure out how to outplay him. Jake nodded, the flickering streetlight illuminating the determination in his eyes, but Sarah could see the weight of fear tugging at his features. She reached out, squeezing his shoulder gently. You're not alone in this. We'll get through it together. She felt the surge of responsibility, a burdensome yet invigorating sensation. It was her chance to step out of the confines of her everyday life and into something more formidable, more impactful. As they passed the familiar shops lining the street, Sarah mulled over the choices ahead. Her mind raced with possibilities. They needed resources, allies, and above all, information. Thoughts of her nursing skills surfaced, and a flicker of inspiration ignited. She had connections, people she knew well, colleagues who might help her unravel Liam's web. Let's head to the hospital, Sarah proposed. I can talk to Mark. He has contacts that might know something. Jake's expression shifted from concern to a semblance of hope. That could work. But what if someone overhears us discussing this? We need to be careful. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. We won't share specifics, just feel out the atmosphere, Sarah replied, her voice firm. Inside, her mind traced the steps she'd need to take, balancing her professional demeanor with the urgency of her situation. As a nurse, she had always been a caretaker, but now she was learning to pivot, transforming that very instinct into a strategic advantage. Each conversation could be a lifeline or a trap, and Sarah's responsibility was to navigate it with precision. The hospital was abuzz when they arrived. Familiar sights brought a measure of comfort as they wove through the busy corridors. Each face around her, a doctor, a nurse, a patient, reminded her of her dedication, but animated a new urgency, as if they each held a piece of this puzzle. At last they reached the break room and Sarah spotted Mark pouring coffee at the far end. "Mark, do you have a moment?" she called, her voice cutting through the background chatter. Mark, with his easygoing grin, looked up, concern replacing the cheerfulness in his eyes quickly. "Sure, what's up?" He approached, a hint of skepticism in his expression. "Can we talk somewhere private?" She glanced around, feeling the weight of their shared secrecy. His brow furrowed, but he led them to a secluded corner. "Is everything all right?" "Not quite," Sarah began, choosing her words carefully. "We have some concerns about Liam, Jake's business partner. We need information about him, connections, deals, anything." Mark hesitated, eyeing Jake. "Are you sure this is wise? He's not someone to tangle with lightly." "I don't want to live in fear," Jake interjected, his voice steady. "We're trying to get ahead of this." As they spoke in hushed tones, Sarah couldn't shake the growing realization of her responsibility in this ordeal. Each decision they made could expose them further or shield them from danger. "All right," Mark finally conceded, his voice lowered. "I might know a guy who has some insights, but it'll cost you. This isn't a casual favor." A mixture of apprehension and excitement coursed through Sarah. They were entering deeper waters now, testing boundaries she'd never realized existed. Just as she was about to respond, a raucous laughter erupted from the adjacent room, drawing her attention and igniting a flicker of alarm. "You're not safe here," a voice echoed in her mind, reminding her of the dangers that lurked, making her question if safety was ever truly within reach. They had ignited something powerful but perilous, and Sarah now recognized that every step forward could lead to unforeseen consequences. How deep was she willing to tread in unknown waters? But the slick figure of Liam loomed heavy in her thoughts. and with that tension tightening around them, Sarah felt the urgency. Decisions lay ahead, and clarity mingled dangerously with doubt. What would they uncover next? Would they be ready for the truth of Liam's world ready to unfold before them? The tension within the break room pressed in on Sarah like the unyielding weight of a leaden blanket. Mark's apprehensive gaze met hers, the unspoken understanding settling uncomfortably between them. They were standing on a precipice, and she could feel the instability beneath their feet. Jake shifted, the muscles in his jaw tightening as uncertainty flickered across his face. "Mark, can you trust this source?" Sarah asked, her voice low but firm. The stakes were rising with every passing second, and her instincts kicked into high gear. "I believe he's credible," Mark admitted, his brow still furrowed in concern. "But tampering with Liam can backfire. You have to consider the implications." Sarah swallowed hard, her mind running through the potential risks like a record playing on repeat, each turn more disquieting than the last. "We're already in the deep end," she said, gripping the edge of the counter. "If we don't act now, we're just waiting to be consumed by this. What's the next move?" Mark shifted uncomfortably, clearly weighing his options. "All right, I'll text him and see if he's willing to meet up." A flicker of hope ignited in Sarah, but it was soon quenched by the realization of what that meeting might entail and the danger they were courting. "Thank you," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We appreciate it." But Sarah felt a murmur of doubt within her. The interconnectedness of their lives had never felt more fragile. The monotony of her nursing days contrasted sharply with this newfound tumult, where every decision resonated with weighty implications. With Mark's contacts in motion, they left the break room and wandered the hospital corridors, the sterile environments brimming with tension. Each person passing by became a potential listener, and Sarah's heart sped up as a thought clenched her stomach. What if someone was always one step ahead of them? "Do you think we can really trust him?" Jake broke the silence, his voice tinged with worry. "It's a risk," she replied, her mind racing. "But we need to act. Staying passive will only allow Liam to dictate our circumstances. I've never been one to back down from a challenge." A spark of determination ignited in Sarah. Drawing on her long history of assessing situations quickly, she still felt the pulse of her nursing instincts, a combination of empathy and strategic assessment. Each patient she cared for had taught her about resilience. Now that resilience was morphing into something bolder. "What's our plan if Mark's guy doesn't come through?" Jake asked, his tone shifting to one of urgency. "We can't just keep reacting." Sarah paused, feeling the reins of the situation slip out of her hands. "Then we pivot. Gather information ourselves. Drive from a different angle. We need to put ourselves in proximity to Liam's operations and find vulnerabilities." As she strategized, her thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the soft ping of Mark's phone. They both turned to see him check his text amid the bustling chaos of the hospital. "He's in town, can meet tonight," Mark shared, his expression a mixture of relief and foreboding. "But it has to be off-site. He's wary of phone lines and conversations." The gravity of the situation hit Sarah, coiling her stomach once more. This wasn't a casual meet. This was an invitation into a world teetering on chaos. She and Jake would be walking a tightrope above a chasm of uncertainty. "Tonight? Are we really ready for this?" Jake's eyes searched hers, gauging her resolve. "I think we have to be," Sarah said, adrenaline lacing her words. "We'll scope the place out first. If we go in, we need to know he won't be the only risk we face." As they pooled their thoughts, Sarah's mind whirled with the possible outcomes. Though fear clawed at her, a newfound conviction surged within. She was no longer the passive observer. This was her fight now, just as much as it was Jake's. Now they were at the edge, preparing to dive into an abyss of exposure. A truth lingered within her, a challenge born from the depths of her own responsibilities. But would her courage be enough to withstand whatever revelations waited in the shadows? The clock was ticking, and with every second the pressure increased. There was no turning back now. What lay ahead would be a confrontation with not only Liam, but perhaps with the truths of herself she had yet to uncover. Would she emerge finally unmasked, ready to face the defining moment of her life? The roar of fluorescent lights filled the parking lot as Sarah and Jake stepped out of the hospital, each lost in their thoughts as they mentally prepared for the evening ahead. The cool night air was sharp against their faces, providing a brief but much-needed clarity. She felt the weight of anticipation settle in her gut, each heartbeat echoing with the gravity of their next move. "Do you think we're really ready for this?" Jake's voice pulled her from her reverie. The uncertainty in his tone mirrored the turmoil within her. He was right to question. This wasn't a cat-and-mouse game anymore. The stakes had elevated. "We'll have to be." Her words emerged with more conviction than she felt. She was discovering layers of herself, layers that were both exhilarating and terrifying. It wasn't just about Liam anymore or the web they had stumbled into. It was about their autonomy, their refusal to remain pawns in someone else's game. As they reached the car, Sarah felt the weight of her nurse's badge against her chest, a reminder of the life she had constructed. Yet tonight, she would be stepping outside those established boundaries. She was no longer just a caregiver. She was becoming an investigator, a strategist, perhaps even a warrior in her own right. Once inside, she navigated the streets with focus, the skyline a blur of neon and shadows. The cafe where they were meeting Mark's contact loomed ahead like a beacon, and with each block they passed, Sarah fought to quell the rising tide of anxiety. What if this man was as dangerous as Liam? What if he was the very embodiment of the threat they were seeking to expose? Jake's glance caught her off guard. "You're awfully quiet. What's going on in that head of yours?" "I'm just thinking," Sarah replied, her voice steadier now. "About everything we've been through to get here. I don't want to fail." "We won't," he said, the tenacity in his voice bringing a sense of solidity to her own wavering spirit. "We're gathering the pieces now. We just have to trust ourselves." Trust. The word rolled around in her mind like a thunderous echo. Trusting each other was essential, but could she trust herself? What did she really know about her own instincts under pressure? As a nurse, she had made gut decisions countless times in the face of life and death, but those situations had always been grounded in medical knowledge. Now, she was navigating uncharted territory, armed with little more than intuition and a burning desire for justice. Parking the car, Sarah took a moment to breathe deeply. She could feel the cool night air filling her lungs, steadying her racing heart. The cafe glowed invitingly, but beneath its warm aura, she sensed darkness lurking. This wouldn't be just another mundane meeting. It would be a junction where decisions were made and lives could pivot. "Ready?" Jake's question was punctuated by an urgency that caused her to snap back into the moment. She nodded, a surge of resolve igniting within her. "Let's take a look around first." Cautiously, they approached the entrance, her mind now running tactical assessments of potential exits and hidden threats. She had to be alert, to maintain awareness, something innate in her nursing background that now transcended into this new endeavor. As they crossed the threshold, her senses heightened, absorbing the atmosphere. The faint scent of coffee mingled with the whispers of patrons. It felt deceptively normal, a facade that could crumble at any moment. They might not just know Liam, she mused, her mind racing. They could be connected to him in ways we can't even imagine. "What are you thinking?" Jake asked, eyeing the table they were to approach. "I'm thinking we need to watch and listen first. We're here to gather intel, to discern who these people are and what they want. It's not just about getting answers. It's about finding our footing in this chaos." And as they settled into their designated spot, tension settled like a thick fog over their covey of two. The unfolding scene spoke of danger, yet an opportunity. Each moment pushed them closer to a potentially life-altering discovery. Sarah steeled herself for whatever was to come, aware that this was not merely a fight for knowledge. It was a step into a confrontation with her own limitations, an exploration of who she truly was, beneath the labels society placed upon her. At that moment she understood. Embracing uncertainty was terrifying, yet it was also liberating. And just then, A figure in the corner caught her eye, his shadow looming larger than life, a pawn in their game, or perhaps the king. Tonight was about to reveal far more than they had anticipated. As the door swung open, she braced herself. The time had come to face what awaited, for better or worse. Would tonight solidify her transformation, or would she realize she had ventured too far into the unknown? The atmosphere inside the cafe thickened as the man Mark had referred to approached their table. A tall figure cloaked in a dark coat. He emanated authority the moment he stepped into the light. Sarah felt a ripple of tension race through the air, her senses honed by years of nursing, alerting her to the intricacies of human emotion and intent. "Peter," he said, extending a hand toward Jake first, then to Sarah. "I hear you're looking for some answers." His voice was steady, cutting through the din of chatter, leaving little room for ambiguity. "Thank you for meeting us," Jake replied, a blend of apprehension and determination washing over him. The initial handshake was brief, yet Sarah could sense the calculated wariness behind it. Details mattered, and how one greeted another could hold the key to understanding their position in the larger scheme. "Let's cut to the chase," Peter suggested, leaning in slightly. "Liam's a slippery character, always smiling, but danger swirls around him like a tempest. What do you know about him?" Sharing stolen glances, Sarah felt her heart accelerate, a familiar rush that echoed the intensity of a code blue. She steadied her breath, centering herself. "We know he's involved in illicit dealings, and we suspect he's connected to something much bigger than himself." Her words unleashed a wave of courage. Peter's eyes narrowed, and Sarah watched as the gears shifted behind them. "Bigger how? Money laundering? Muscle for hire? He's dangerous. But we want to know exactly how deep this goes," Jake answered, his voice firming now. There was undeniable urgency behind their collective pursuit, but Sarah felt the weight of their decisions hanging heavily between them. They were standing at the edge of a chasm with only a frail rope to cross. Peter leaned back, his demeanor morphing into a blend of respect and concern. "Time is of the essence. If Liam suspects you're digging into his operations, it won't just be your lives on the line. He has connections everywhere." He swept his gaze across the cafe, indicating unseen threats lurking behind ordinary patrons and baristas. "Then what's the plan?" Sarah pressed, her determination empowered by the truth they were revealing. She felt like a nurse in the ER, every second counting, every heartbeat weighing heavily on the outcome. "We gather intel, but we do it quietly. Whoever is feeding you information needs to remain covert. Liam's people are watching," Peter said, nodding. "And you're right to be cautious. But you need to understand, this isn't just about the business, it's about safety, survival. And if you're pacting with anyone in this world, trust is an ephemeral veil." Jake absorbed the information, his eyes alight with a mixture of fear and resolve. "What do you suggest?" "We infiltrate. There are ways to gain access to Liam's operations without him catching wind of it. We're talking about a few logistics that could reveal what you need to know." Peter's unyielding gaze fell on Sarah. "That could get dangerous fast," Jake warned, thinking of the risks. Sarah interrupted, her voice carving through the tension. "No more waiting for things to play out. This is our chance to confront the threats while we have the advantage. I wasn't trained to run from risks. I was trained to face them head-on." Peter's lips hinted at a wry smile. "Finally a spine," he remarked, and Sarah felt a flicker of pride mixed with fear surge through her. "Tell us what we need to do," Jake pressed, hope rising within him as the prospect of taking control began to crystallize. "We'll set up a meeting with one of Liam's suppliers, someone who is drowning in his orders but might fear crossing him. That chap wants out. Hooking up with him will give us a window into how far Liam's influence stretches. It's risky, but it'll give you an edge," Peter instructed, a plan sparking into motion. "Where do we start?" "Meet me tomorrow night, I'll arrange it. But be prepared, the underworld doesn't forgive easily." Peter's demeanor shifted, becoming even more serious. "And remember, I'm not your shield. You're stepping into a layer of grit that will test your very core." As the conversation concluded, A sensation of empowerment mixed with adrenaline rushed through Sarah. She was no longer merely reacting to Jake's world. She was claiming her agency amid its storming tides. Every decision they made now built upon her knowledge and strength, forging a bridge that would lead them away from fear. As they exited the cafe, the brisk air was laced with purpose. For Sarah, this wasn't just about unraveling an external threat. It was about proving to herself that she could withstand the pressures of life's unexpected turns. The internal transformation that began when she chose to confront the truth about Jake's world was solidifying. The flickering shadows cast by the streetlights swayed gently around them, mirroring the uncharted depths of their journey ahead. All fears notwithstanding, Sarah felt a distinct sense of strength building within her, a resolution grounded in understanding and purpose. They were on the precipice of evolution, both collectively and as individuals. "Sarah," Jake said, breaking her concentration, "I don't know what I would have done without you." She met his gaze, everything whispering of shared understandings and a promise to confront danger together. "We'll navigate this together, Jake. You've given me something to fight for." As they made their way home under the open sky, each step echoed with possibility. The challenges that lay ahead might be daunting, but she sensed that the clarity of their path would define a new chapter, not just intertwined with Jake's life, but her own as well. She was writing a story of her own, laden with courage, tenacity, and the ultimate truth she long sought, that the light and shadows of life could coexist, and that she was more than ready to embrace both. With their roles shifting onward to dynamic spheres, Sarah felt light pouring into the darkness of uncertainty. She would stand resolute in the face of fear, ready to confront Liam and whatever else awaited them on the horizon. As they turned the final corner toward their apartment, her thoughts circled back to the promises of discovery and validation. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about emerging victorious. She had evolved beyond her past, ready to seize the future with an unquenchable spirit. Now the real battle loomed ahead, and each revelation would lead them closer to understanding, not just about Liam, but about themselves. The storm ahead awaited them, but she no longer felt afraid. Sarah was ready to face whatever it threw her way. With newfound courage gleaming in her heart, she stepped forward into her future, no longer entangled in the webs of ignorance, but unmasking the truth for herself. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this with those who want to witness the power of transformation.